Hi everybody, I am Mia, and soon I will be turning 21. Right now, finals week, I'm immersed in my architectural work. My little apartment is a mess. Blueprints, empty coffee cups, and crumpled papers abound. To be honest, it's draining. Yet one thing keeps me going. My grandma is organizing something unique for my birthday. Although I realize a family birthday celebration shouldn't be that significant, for me, it's tough. Family get-togethers always seemed more like a job than anything I actually looked forward. I always felt really uncomfortable growing up about it. Zoe, my older sister, 27 now, has always been the highlight of the show, my parents' delight. Conversely, I've always been the extra, the one who was simply there. Zoe turned 15 when I was 9, and my parents gave her this huge birthday celebration. They leased a facility including a 3-tiered cake, a picture booth, and a DJ. You would find this type of celebration in those teen films. Thrilled, I recall thinking, maybe when it's my turn, I'll get something like this too. Well, my birthday arrived some months later, and let's say it didn't. Not DJ, not a picture booth, just a little, simple cake from the supermarket shop and some gloves. Indeed, mitters. Although I tried to sound appreciative, deep down it hurt. Don't be dramatic, Mia. My mother gently patted me on the head. It is simply a birthday. And at that moment, everything clicked. This was always how it will be. It then became abundantly evident that I would never be the one celebrating the great events or presenting lavish presents. Zoe acquired the newest tablet, a dazzling new phone or gadget each year. On the other side, I inherited her old items. They got Zoe a real automobile after she graduated from high school. And once I graduated, a bookshop gift card worth $50. I enjoy reading, so don't get me wrong, but it's not quite the same. I am used to that by now. If I claimed it doesn't hurt, I would be lying, but I have come to live with it. Only my grandmother Lily has ever made me feel like I mattered. She has been my ongoing encouragement. She reminds me that I have value, often checking in, brings meals to me when I'm buried in tasks, and she is different than my parents are. Grandma. Lily knows the strain and late hours as she was a retired architect as well. When I chose to pursue architecture, she became quite happy. You have skill, Mia, she would tell me, and a fine head on your shoulders. You will go great. The finest thing is also that she intended it free from strings. Just sincere encouragement. She insisted this year on planning my birthday celebration personally. I first found her somewhat dubious. Why would this one be any different when my parents have long dismissed my birthdays? Grandma Lily then informed me she had given my parents $3,000 to do something memorable for me. $3,000. She was not accepting no for an answer. She wanted to make sure I at last had a birthday worth remembering. I surprised myself when she informed me. Not once, but never have my parents given me that much of attention. It was almost like a dream. Still, I couldn't get rid of the gut-based anxiety. I merely wanted to be let down once again, not to raise too great expectations. Finals week kept me occupied, but in the rear of my mind I couldn't quit thinking about the celebration. Would they actually follow through this time? I questioned Claire, my roommate, would laugh about my family situation to lessen the load knowing everything about it. As I packed my books for another evening of study, Mother would ask, "So you ready for the great family celebration?" Grinning. "Indeed, we will see," I would say, forcing a grin. Though a small part of me held to the notion that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different, deep down I could not deny that uncomfortable sensation. That day at last arrived when I completed my last final. Out of the test hall, I felt like I could breathe once again. Lifting the weight of homework, I began to consider the options for my birthday. Real cake, not one from the sale section, perhaps even some decorations, balloons. Thanks in part to Grandma Lily's efforts, I let myself picture for once that my parents may surprise me. My phone buzzed with a few early birthday greetings from pals aware I would be returning home shortly as I made my way back to my hostel. Their comments made my heart warm. Being recognized felt wonderful. Even if it was only among folks I had known for a few years. It occasionally felt as though my buddies cared more than my own family did. "Happy nearly birthday, Mia." Looking more thrilled than I felt, Claire cried out as I entered our room. "Thanks," I said, trying to grin, but that old knot of anxiety still twisted in my gut. I tried to remain upbeat, assuring myself that this time things would be different with Grandma involved. The bus journey home dragged on while my imagination ran through a million distinct possibilities. Assuming they do decorations, what if? Suppose they left everything for me to handle. I attempted to hang on to the belief that, should Grandma Lily be behind this, it must be positive. Simply said, it had to be Dot. At last, I stepped off the bus and paused outside my house, inhaling deeply before moving in. The home appeared just as it usually does, no balloons, no streamers. I attempted to remain hopeful as I reasoned perhaps they had decorated inside. "Mom, Dad, I'm at home!" Walking in the door, I yelled. But the quiet that met me was icy, like the type that envelops you when nobody else wants to be located. My heart accelerating, I left my purse beside the entrance and made toward the living room. My parents were seated on the couch, looking uncomfortable and tight, when I rounded the bend. Though my heart dropped, I kept my voice calm. Where then is all the birthday stuff? Though my stomach was turning over, I asked, attempting to be laid back. I felt the pit in my stomach descend when my parents glanced at one another, as though they were preparing for something. Clung to that final thread of hope that somehow they might surprise me. I waited there waiting for them to explain. After avoiding eye contact and clearing his throat, my dad replied, "Mia, about the birthday party." My pulse sharpened as my dad's words drifted off. Though I still waited, eager for him to disprove me, his expression captured all. Fidgety with her hands, my mother was looking at the floor as though she were hoping it would swallow her up. At last, my dad plucked the bravery to glance at me and said, "We decided not to throw the party, Mia." 2 seconds passed before the words sank in. I blinked, attempting to understand his recently made remarks. "What? Grandma paid you money for it, though," and my voice cracked with incredulity. "She paid my birthday $3,000. Trying to keep my voice from trembling, I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks and my hands closing at my sides. My mom interrupted before I could say anything. We handed the money to Zoe. She said, as if this made perfect sense, she and her boyfriend planned to spend a few days in Cancun and she truly needed a vacation. I merely gazed at her. The words bounced about in my brain without logical meaning. Zoe is not for any trip. The money was for me, for my birthday. I thought of myself as having been sucker punched. My head went blank, then abruptly burst with a burning, seething rage I had suppressed for years. But that money was meant for me, and I stammered with irritation. "Grandma handed it to me on my birthday. One cannot simply hand it over." Dad shrugged as though it were not really important. "Zoe, more than Mia, needs the vacation. She deserves a holiday. She has been under pressure at work. You will comprehend, then, not sure?" In that patronizing voice, he remarked. I started to want to yell. I thought my hands began to shake. My breath emerged in short, harsh spurts. "No, I find it difficult," I fired back, my voice louder than I had intended it to be. This was meant to be my birthday celebration. I extended invitations to my pals. I stopped myself. When the truth of it sank in me, my chest tightened. I wanted to say, "But I believed you cared about me." But the words would not come out, and I detested the way I sounded. Desperate? As though I were the one acting irrationally, my mother sighed, long, annoyedly. "We've already straightened it out, Mia," she added, her voice steely. "We canceled the party and called your friends to let them know you were having some problems at college." She said it so dismissingly, as though she were doing me a favor. They told lies to my pals. They made it sound as though I was the one causing trouble rather than merely acknowledging they had handed away party funds. "You told them what?" My voice broke and I could feel tears filling me, but I battled to control them. Though I detested that I still cared, I did. I regretted that I had allowed myself think things would be different this time. "You lied to them about me," I muttered, just barely able to control the rage. "How could you do that?" Then the face of my dad altered. He was not avoiding eye contact anymore. He seemed irritated now. "That's enough, Mia," he said quickly. You're acting selfishly. Zoe wanted this trip, yet you cannot always have everything you wish for. Narcissistic. They constantly tossed that term at me, as though it were some kind of magic potion to knock me down. Though my throat was thick with unshed tears, I felt a nasty chuckle pop up. Selfish? My voice swelling with incredulity, I asked. Today was my birthday. It's not about seeking perfection in everything. It's about wishing for something once. The front door opened before I could say anything more, and my heart leaped. For a fleeting second, I considered perhaps Zoe, returning early, maybe even feeling guilty. No, though. It was Grandma Lily entering with a keen, inquisitive expression. Her eyes traveled over the picture, absorbing my tear-streaked face, my parents' strained faces, and she missed not one beat. What's happening here? Her voice sliced over the quiet like a dagger. Where's the party? My parents tensed. As they passed another glance, like children caught doing something they weren't meant to, I could see the terror in their eyes. When my dad opened his lips, nothing came out. My mom then became really fascinated by the floor. It dawned on me then that they had omitted telling her. Grandma Lily was clueless about their financial behavior. I inhaled deeply. My voice trembles yet powerful. I forced myself to look Grandma in the eyes and responded, "There is no celebration." They handed Zoe the money instead for a trip. Though each syllable tasted sour on my mouth, they fell out like a weight had been taken off my chest. This time I wasn't going to let them write the story. I stopped pretending everything was fine. Grandma Lily's look changed to one of incredulity mixed with wrath. She turned to my parents, and I watched real terror in their eyes for the first time in my life. Her voice harsher than I had ever heard, she said, "Is this true?" Silent, both of them stood there providing all the necessary validation. Grandma's jaw grew hard as she gently shook her head, clearly disappointed. "I find this unbelievable," she continued, her voice cracking with anguish. She turned back toward me, her face softening. "Mia, get ready with your stuff. Come along with me." Someone had seemed to have just thrown me a lifeline. I hurried upstairs without saying, not sure what was occurring. Grandma's voice downstairs could be heard as I grabbed my backpack and tossed some clothing. She wasn't holding back. Though I could not understand all she was saying, her tone clearly expressed fury. My parents seemed to have been very chastised by the time I returned. As I passed them, they hardly even tried to stop me. Keeping my head up, I refused to let them experience the gratification of knowing how wounded I was. Grandma Lily nodded firmly as though to say, "We're in this together," while she waited at the entrance. We left the home, and I turned not once around. Anger, relief, and something I hadn't felt in a long time, hope, wrangled in me as we entered her car. It went beyond the party now. It related to years of feeling as though I was invisible. Grandma drove, leaned over and held my hand, then gave a little consoling grin. Her voice quiet now, she added, "Don't you worry, sweetheart. We'll sort this out. You are deserving more than this. She articulated it in a way that made sense, and I believed her for the first time in what seemed to be eternity. Grandma looked to me with a determined face as we drew into her driveway. "This might not be the party you were hoping for, but Mia, we will honor your birthday appropriately." I managed a little grin, a spark of optimism that I had long ago extinguished. "Thanks, Grandma," I said, hardly audible. I knew, though, she heard me. We entered her little, comfortable house, and I thought perhaps things could change. And I felt ready for it. Moving in with Grandma Lily had challenges, not in a terrible manner, rather like entering another planet. Though I had always felt at ease around her, living with her presented a different dynamic. Being the center of attention or feeling welcome in my own house was not natural to me. Back at my parents' house, I had learnt to keep my head down, stay out of the way, and avoid becoming caught in whatever drama Zoe or my parents had going on. It was only the two of us here, and I had no cause for hiding. Grandma made sure I felt at home starting on the first night. We ordered much too much food, frankly, from my preferred restaurant, and she suggested that I relax and kick back. "Your birthday is still Mia," she grinned. "You get to do nothing tonight." I couldn't recall the last time someone had fussed over me. She began to tell tales from her early years as we ate. I had heard some of them before, how she launched her own architecture business from nothing, encountered doubt since she was a woman in a sector dominated by men, and had a strong career in spite of all. Now, in this new setting, hearing those tales was different. She seemed attempting to remind me that, independent of what others believed, I could create something for myself too. Even with all that great enthusiasm, though, I couldn't get rid of the uncomfortable feeling about my parents. The whole thing kept chewing at me. Why I had never been enough for them still eluded me. Why would they not show the same concern for me as they did of Zoe? Why could they constantly shove me aside so effortlessly? Though I tried not to let such ideas sour my time with Grandma, they persisted at the back of my mind. At last, one evening after supper, we were seated on the sofa viewing TV, and I simply could not keep it in anymore. "Grandma," I started, stammering to choose the correct words. "Why do they love me not as they love Zoe?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted, and I detested my vulnerability. Looking down at my hands, I waited for her to reply, praying she had a response that would make everything logical. She stopped, laying down her cup, and I saw this look cross her face, one that indicated she had been dreading this talk, but also knew it unavoidable. She sighed long ago and turned to squarely face me. "Mia, I have been wanting to gently chat to you about this for some time," she added. "I just had no idea when the appropriate moment would be." In my chest, my heart hammered. She meant something else by it. What could she possibly say that I hadn't yet worked out personally? Sensing that whatever she was about to tell me wouldn't be easy to hear, I merely nodded, trying to hold it together. Grandma inhaled deeply, then fixed me squarely in the eyes. "Your parents. They didn't want to have yet another child after Zoe. Blinking startled. I tried to understand what she was saying. "What?" My voice hardly steady, I managed to murmur. Nevertheless, "But why?" She turned aside momentarily, a melancholy face falling over her. They considered Zoe to be sufficient. They were happy, simply her. When they learned about you, well, they weren't pleased. Your mother had an extremely tough pregnancy and a hard delivery. She came close, not making it like a tsunami. The words knocked away my lungs' breath. Though I battled to keep them in, I could feel my throat constrict and tears filling up. I wanted not to wither in front of her. "So it's my fault then?" I gasped out, hardly hearing my own voice. "I'm the reason they," says Grandma softened her face and stretched out to firmly grab my hands in hers. Mia spoke gently but forcefully. "No, Mia, it's not your fault. None of you are responsible for this. Sometimes events occur and nobody is at blame. But your mother couldn't find herself bonding with you once you were born, and your dad just followed whatever she felt." I sat down, attempting to understand her words. Now all the elements were falling into place. It seemed like a jigsaw I had been trying to solve all my life. Still, knowing the truth had no less effect on pain. It sharpened the agony and increased its concentration. I responded coldly. "So they decided I didn't matter." A contempt I had never let myself feel before seeping into my voice. Grandma tightened my hands and had unshed tears in her eyes. "I battled for Mia, for you. Knowing how they treated you, I persuaded them to stay with you and have tried to be there as often as I could. I really apologize for having you go through that. And at that point, the tears I had been suppressing came loose. I leaned forward to cry onto her shoulder. She put her arms around me. I let myself grieve for the first time the affection and encouragement from my parents that ought to have been mine. Grandma only hugged me and let me weep till I ran out of tears. She avoided trying to reassure me falsely or convince me it will all be okay. She just let me experience what I needed to experience, and at that instant it was precisely what I needed. She softly drew back after a time to dab at the tears off my face. "Listen to Mia here. Not one of these describes you personally. You are a brilliant, gifted young woman who deserve love and respect. Your loss. Theirs if your parents cannot see that. Though my heart still hurt, I nodded, sniffed, felt a weight lift from my chest. She looked at me with great resolve. You are not by yourself in this, you have my back. And going forward we will make sure you always have the tools required. Not sure what to say, so I simply gave her another embrace, tightly clinging. Knowing that at least one person in my life really cared about me, not because they had to, but because they wanted, felt wonderful. Grandma went to bed that evening, and I stayed awake in the strange luxury of her guest room, going over what she had told me. Now all made sense. The way my parents treated me like an afterthought, how they always placed Zoe's wants and wishes first, and why they never appeared to give my milestones any regard. It never related to anything I had done. It concerned choices they took long before I ever had an opportunity. Though the knowledge hurt, there was also an unusual clarity. At last I could see the wider picture, and I was not the one damaged. It was us. These were the ones who had decided to cut off themselves from me, unable to look past their own bitterness and disappointment. And for the first time I thought perhaps, just maybe, I might begin to release some of the guilt I had felt for so long. Grandma's voice echoed in my head before I turned in for sleep. Mia, you are not by yourself anymore. And at last I began to believe her. Mia discovers the terrible truth about her parents' negligence at the conclusion of Part 3, and with her grandmother's assistance, she starts to see a road ahead. Mia will be finding her own power in Part 4, handling additional challenges, and beginning to create a life that seems more like her own. Tell me when you feel ready for the last section. Having Grandma around. Lily offered a level of calm I had never experienced, yet the old scars did not go away overnight. I tried to concentrate on the good, dinners with Grandma, her stories, the small times of laughter, but the recollections of all I had left behind persisted. 1 week following my move-in, I also received an SMS from Zoe. We must have a conversation. Come see me at the park. I almost paid it no attention. Why should I offer her the time of day after everything? But some of me yearned closure, or perhaps I simply wanted to hear her own admission that they had screwed up. Either way, I discovered myself bracing for anything she had to say while strolling to the park with arms crossed. Zoe was already on a bench when I arrived, looking anxious in a way I had never seen before. She got up as soon as she noticed me, attempting a subdued grin. Thanks for coming, Mia. What are you looking for, Zoe? Not preoccupied with politeness, I asked. If this is about, I'm not coming back. Zoe looked around, maybe expecting some direction on how to begin. She gave a sigh at last. It's not about that, she remarked with strained voice. I need you to chat to Grandma. Not disguising my perplexity, I arched an eyebrow. Talk to her about what? Asked Dot. Zoe ran a hand through her hair, looking really hopeless as her shoulders dropped. She is cutting off Mia here. She stated she won't give us any more money unless we straighten things out with you. Mom and Dad are in hysterics. I was surprised and stood there momentarily. Before I could stop it, I then started to chuckle bitterly. So now they're concerned. Uncovering the sharpness in my voice, I said, Now when the money is on the line, they care. Zoe protested. It's not just about the money, but even she didn't seem persuaded. She turned aside, her words almost a whisper. Mia, Grandma is altering her will. Should our situation not be resolved, she is leaving everything to you. I found my jaw to drop. What? Grandma was furious, as I knew, but I never imagined she would go that far. Still, for the first time I felt like someone was really on my side, that she was defending me in a way nobody else would have done. Zoe moved forward, her voice getting more frantic. Please, Mia. You are aware of the extent of their reliance on her. She screwed us if she shut us off. I shook my head and tightened my crossed arms. Not my issue. Zoe is that. Things may be different if you people had treated me like family rather than an afterthought. Zoe's face stiffened, a trace of irritation tumbling through her desperation. Do you really want to be the cause our family breaks apart? She snapped, seeking to guilt-trip me as usual. I inhaled deeply, then stood steadily. No, Zoe, says many years ago our family broke apart, and if you cannot see it, I am not the one that has to solve anything. She gazed at me, at a vocabulary loss. She shook her head at last, a bitter twist to her lips. "Mia, you are erasing a mistake. You will be sorry about this." I turned aside, a weird sensation of finality settling in my chest. Walking away from her and toward a future seemed unknown, but ultimately mine. I responded, "We'll see about that." I had stated what I had to say for the first time without backtracking. Though it seemed little, it was mine. Grandma was in the kitchen humming gently as she made lunch when I returned. Anticipating her to be enraged, I told her about the meeting. She only nodded, though, as though she had anticipated it all coming. She responded, "I'm proud of you, Mia," smiling slightly to reassure me. "What counts is that you stood up for yourself," her comments soaked in, and for the first time I felt as like I was running my own life. It was an unusual sensation, like releasing a weight I had carried for years. Grandma helped me to begin paying attention to my own goals. Starting my summer architectural internship, I put myself into the task. More than that, it felt like I was finally being noticed for my talents, not just as Zoe's sister, and that was a nice diversion. As I was going over plans one afternoon, Kevin, my supervisor, called into his office. "Mia, your work really speaks to me," he replied. "Your eye for design is very excellent. Have you ever considered hanging around following the internship? Perhaps assuming a part-time job as you work toward your degree, though in a positive sense." His remarks startled me. "Very true," I asked, trying not to come out as overly enthusiastic. "You would wish me to remain?" Kevin nodded, grinning. "Very true. We could have someone like you on the team. For me, it was a seminal event. Nobody has ever before acknowledged my work in that manner. I had always been the shadow, the one lacking quite fitting measure. But here I was, just Mia, with my own possibilities." Though deep down I knew my response, I told Kevin I would think about it. I was supposed to say yes. I showed Grandma the offer that evening and she shone with pride. She exclaimed, hugging me, "That's my girl. Mia, you are going to achieve fantastic things. I have known this always. Her faith in me exceeded anything I could express." I felt for the first time that my family's expectations had no bearing on the future I would find. It felt freeing as I began piecemeal building something for myself. Naturally, though, nothing is ever that straightforward. A few days later, I was organizing designs for a job when Grandma knocked on the door. My gut turned because down below, I knew who it was. Grandma opened the door to find my parents staring like they had practiced their worried faces in the mirror. My mother started, "Mia, we're worried about you," her voice soft and gentle, like she was the loving mother she had never known. "You have been avoiding us. We are not sure why." I crossed my arms, leaning against the counter. "You know just exactly why. Before Grandma became involved, you showed no interest in me. You suppose I will simply forget everything?" My dad jumped in, trying to sound logical. "Mia, we had no idea how you felt. If you had knew?" I stopped, fury blazing through me. "You constantly knew. You merely didn't give a damn. You always gave Zoe top attention. They looked at each other, the kind they always used to help each other sort out how to treat me. Mom tried once more. "We have loved you, Mia, always. We simply lacked ideas on how to present it. Feeling both pity and wrath. I almost laughed at that. "Well, you had 21 years to sort it out. You didn't. Now you're acting as though everything is good just because there is money involved. The look on my dad became firm. "This is not about money, Mia. It has to do with family." "Right," I said, sarcasm teeping through my voice. "And when precisely did you start showing concern for family?" Before they could respond, Grandma stepped in, her voice firm and unyielding. "I think it's time you both left. Mia has made her decision, and I support her. She doesn't owe you anything." They looked shocked, like they hadn't expected Grandma to take my side so strongly. My mom's eyes filled with tears, and she tried to play the guilt card one last time. "Please, Mia, we're trying here." I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of peace. "No, you're trying because Grandma cut you off. Don't pretend it's anything else." Grandma opened the door, and without another word my parents left, looking more defeated than I'd ever seen them. And honestly, I didn't feel sorry for them. They'd made their choices, and now they had to live with the consequences. As the door closed behind them, Grandma turned to me and pulled me into a hug. You did the right thing, Mia. Sometimes standing up for yourself means letting people go. I hugged her back tightly, a sense of freedom settling in my chest. Thanks, Grandma. I don't know what I'd do without you. She smiled, giving me a gentle squeeze. You're stronger than you think, Mia. And you're going to build a life that's yours, no matter what anyone else says. And for the first time in my life, I believed her. As I stood there in Grandma's cozy living room, I realized that I finally had the chance to be my own person, to build my own future. It wouldn't be easy. There was still so much pain to work through, so much healing to do, but I had hope, and that was a start, and for now, that was enough.